Welcome to Uncaged, a show that celebrates thought leadership from today's top business leaders. The program provides a voice to amazing executives from around the world who are championing business today and making the future come alive. And so we've got on the show today, we have Donnie Williams. How are you doing, Donnie?
I'm holding up.
It's great to talk to you, Donnie. I've known Donnie for many, many years. I would say that we're very fortunate to talk to him today. He is really one of the people that has been a pioneer in digitizing the media landscape and being a key leader for one of the most dynamic agencies, which is Horizon Media. Donnie is the EVP and Chief Digital Officer at Horizon Media. He also is the co-founder of another agency called Night Market, board director of many other things. Pretty much if there's something new happening in the digital media landscape, it seems that Donnie has a hand in it. And so I'm really excited to talk to him about how he sees the future evolving and how the last year has kind of evolved for him and Horizon. Before we get into that, Donnie, tell us a little bit about your background and your career.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, thanks for having me, Ben. Good to catch up. So I've been working in digital marketing for 20 plus years at this point. I jumped into the career when the field was kind of emerging. You know, the timeline there probably says it all. But I hopped into a full service agency, focused on project management, and got to see a lot of the creative side of the business, a lot of the emerging digital media side of the business at that point, and even some kind of early analytics type work. It was a heavy performance based gig at that point. I was doing some work for Dell Consumer and doing some work for Marriott Brands and Unilever, and it was all totally funky, bizarre, and kind of fun, young folk and skateboards and all that.
You know, it's so funny, Donnie, when you talk about that, I think about, when I started in the digital space and somebody asked me, like, what was the first stuff that you worked on? I'm a bit older than you. And, I said the first thing I did was a screensaver for, for Guinness beer. And I was explaining this to kind of a group of 20-somethings, and they all looked at me like, what's a screensaver?
Yeah. That's right. I think I spent 70% of my time, I'm going to mess up all the language here, but I like 70% of my time negotiating homepage takeovers. Like a heavy presence on like the portal homepage type stuff. Which again, at that point was like lots of dollars, a great learning opportunity, and really marquee brands. I mean, working across blue chip brands, and a lot of those folks who I partnered with early on, who I worked with early on, are still in the industry and having an impact. And that was kind of my first exposure to professional world and holding companies. My family, in part, is LA based, and right around, I guess the early 2000s, the market had a pretty tough go of it, and decided as a youngster that I wanted to check out living in LA full time. Picked up with Dentsu out there, Carry USA at that point. Mm-hmm. Worked in some auto stuff. A lot of the LA marketplace, Ben, as you're well aware, a lot of the LA marketplace is like entertainment driven, auto driven. So I did a little bit of the entertainment side of things. I spent some years in the auto world as well, working with Hyundai Kia, which is ironic at this point in my career. And also got to touch Adidas, which was that first moment in time where, and now this is probably, this is somewhere around 2005 or so. It was the first moment in time where I actually saw a brand marketer thinking about digital media as a platform to promote, the essence of a brand, like a real brand strategy. So kind of like that mesh point between brand marketing and performance marketing. And where they actually announced like or they introduced the Impossible is Nothing platform, which was one of the coolest, like just the coolest advertising campaign, which by the way is still out there running. Spent some years in Venice Beach and got kind of fat and, got kind of sloppy. It's a beautiful area, but I was spending too much time on the beach and decided wanted to be back in New York, and eventually along the lines there picked up with Horizon and Bill Koenigsberg and started to think through really how I wanted to and how we wanted to see the future of media and marketing services organizations. I mean, Horizon was a tiny company back then with a great spirit. And so it was really just kind of an open canvas for us to create a next generation of agencies. And fast forward now, I'm going to be in my...
I mean, I think that, Bill and you and that team at Horizon has just been phenomenal in terms of continuing to evolve the model, coming up with new things. And so, I've noticed that there's been this push where media companies are clearly seeing the stronger connection into commerce. And I saw that you guys launched Night Market and some of the other activities. I'd love to hear more about what you guys are focused on in some of those areas right now.
Yeah. So, the field at large has changed in that the accountability has just been like a huge point of emphasis. Companies like ours basically can't stick around if we're not improving the way our clients go to market, improving the business outcomes associated with our services. So for us to get as close to the consumer behavior as possible and help to inform that experience, I mean, that's huge. That's paramount. So we have this huge performance marketing services at the organization. And that's a lot of like the lever pulling around biddable, all the stuff that's related to performance, search marketing, programmatic, social marketing, and beyond.
Yeah.
And the next frontier for us about 2 years ago at this point was making sure that we really had kind of the commerce side of things bolted down. So a lot of what we're doing today, and it's a really fast moving machine, but a lot of what we're doing right now is providing owned and operated strategy, which is making sure that the user experience on the site side or own assets for marketers is really strong. We're helping to translate data across all these emerging third-party environments that are huge mechanisms for revenue generation, the Walmarts, Amazons, and beyond. And then we're feeding that information back into our overall communication strategy process, right? Like all aspects of every touch point to try to enable that like so super silly, but like frictionless buying, right? Like consumers don't want to be beaten over the head with brand messaging. They want to figure out how to get access to whatever product they're interested at that point in time. So for us, like really stripping away the burden of the purchase process and the relationship between brands and consumers is important. And that's what Night Market's here to do. And it's it's an interesting service division, and it's a separate entity. It's an affiliate of Horizon, but it's an interesting go to market because it's one part consultative. It's a lot of like trying to put yourself in a marketer's and or a business operator's shoes and think about the future of their own business ops. And then it's one part services, right? So it's like, hey, we've got this great idea. We know what's gonna really encourage behavior change. We can also help facilitate that if for some reason you're just not in a moment in time where you can make that decision on your own or invest in those resources on your own. So it's been well received. It's led by a super bright guy from Deloitte, Randy Browning's been around the industry for a long time, and it's been a huge facet of our success over the past 6 months, and then the 12 months leading up, where we've gone through the hairiest economic situation imaginable.
Yeah.
And beyond. So,
no, I mean, I love it, and I see that push where media companies are really trying to marry that I'd say that performance or programmatic world together with the next phase, which is very much commerce, and sometimes pulling that back into content. So it completely makes sense that you guys would be pushing into that area. But with that in mind, I mean, certainly the industry is shifting and changing, and we've seen the announcements of a cookieless world, which almost seems like it goes against the challenges that we face, or the direction we were going. to build a much more targeted world. How are you guys looking at that type of challenge?
Yeah. Well, so it's funny. I think there's the challenge of all of the noise around cookieless marketing. There's that challenge, which is distinct to today. And there's the challenge of the past 2 years or so, when we've been thinking about how to invest in our own company in support of, a viable future for ourselves and like a relevant organization for the brands that we aspire to partner with. So it's like the stuff hasn't really thrown us off course. We've spent a tremendous amount of money on data infrastructure. We had our eyes on consent management really early on. So we're not concerned about now kind of talking to consumers about whether or not their information there is a value exchange related to their personal data. That's something that we were talking about years ago. And we've got a tremendous amount of investment in analytics, right? So for us to shift from kind of third-party insights to modeled insights is not a profound change in our operations and or our investment strategy from a resourcing standpoint. So, I think there's a big point of emphasis related to education and making sure that clients know what to expect over the next 12 months and beyond. I think there's definitely the transparency factor, which is like, it feels like we're going to have a lot of these consolidated partnerships where we have like a platform strategy versus an omnichannel strategy, like Google, Facebook. What does Amazon look like? What does Walmart look like and beyond? So we're navigating some of that stuff as well. Trade Desk is certainly too. But it's more of a dialogue and an education and just kind of slowing down kind of the speed at which we were invested in our own data asset strategy, and making sure people know that we're in this thing for the long term. We don't have to, this isn't an upheaval moment for us. This is really a double down moment for us, which has been exciting. It's been resonating. I mean, Ben, you and I were chatting about it before we popped on. Our business is not like going well. Our business is exploding, and a lot of it is because we have a long-term view, and we've been able to anticipate some of these market changes. And now it's just making sure that everyone amongst 150 brands and beyond that we work with are comfortable.
I mean, I remember talking to you years ago about some of the challenges that companies need to have and need to be thinking about in terms of first-party data and versus third-party data, and certainly some companies were getting ready for that stuff earlier, ahead of others. Certainly, I think your clients were ahead because you guys were developing kind of an evolutionary approach with them in the right way, and so that completely makes sense. What other things are you excited about in terms of what's happening in the industry right now?
Well, I'm excited by media behavior, which sounds not exciting, but it is kind of exciting. I mean, I love that there seems to be a boiled down consumer view. Like everyone's kind of gravitated toward streaming services. Everyone's got their favorite content assets, and there's it's been like an incredible acceleration around the shift in consumption behavior, and for my world, for digital, for people who've been like practitioners of digital marketing forever, this is like the moment, right? We're thrilled that we have this closed loop environment where we can really, navigate any sort of strategy from a communication standpoint and from a delivery standpoint. So that's it. We've kind of like arrived. You could actually be a full funnel marketer and only invest in digital platforms I think you're absolutely right. I mean, all of the stuff that we used to talk about and be frustrated about with TV not being something that somehow TV had to be navigated or in a kind of an old worldy way seems to be finally breaking down and starting to become attributable and connected, which is spectacular. It's huge.
It's huge. So tell me, I mean, Donnie, you're obviously running a huge part of what Horizon Media is about these days. How has the pandemic shifted what you guys have been doing? And just on a personal note, how have you been staying sane in this whole period?
Right. Well, listen, you've been to our offices in New York. I think you've been to our offices in LA. We have offices in Toronto, and we're thinking through the next kind of meaningful footprint for us.
I mean, honestly, Donnie, there are offices that I'd never want to go to again, but your office is actually one of the few offices that I definitely want to go back to.
You are not alone. I'm right there with you. I'm telling you, I hang out with with some of the guys from So Far Sounds. I don't know if you check them out at all.
Yeah.
And we talk to them once a month or whatever. I have a couple friends over there, and we're always like, geez, when we're allowed to, and they're coming back, when we're allowed to, we're going to use that space for a whole bunch of great events, which is exciting to think about. But beyond the fact that our company culture is has been an area of emphasis for us, and a lot of it was related to the physical identity of the brand. Beyond that, there's a real meaningful cultural element to kind of the drive-by in-office experience, and I would say, on the business side, we are safe and sound, which is great, which we're so excited about. There's really no way to be like overly compelled by the way the business has been growing, but
right.
It kind of feels like the vulnerability is just in those like more intimate moments where you're trying to give the entire community of the organization access to leadership and visibility around projects that they're really excited about, and access to brands that they may not have had an opportunity to work with in the past, and all the stuff that goes into creating a talent-rich culture. And so that's been a real kick in the pants. So,
are you guys still remote or?
Yeah, we're distributed right now. So we came back in the fall, or late summer, fall, and we had a smaller percentage of the company in New York, specifically in the office.
Mm-hmm.
We turned it off again in November, kind of late fall, when the numbers started to get a little bit higher. We're planning right now on being back to the office at a percentage in September. And that looks really good. We're excited by that. We're hoping for a little bit earlier, but September feels right. And at the end of the day, we're not going to make anyone do anything they're not comfortable with. We don't see an employee driven community having over 50% of its employees in the office at any given time. We think a percentage of people are just off in a different model, which makes a lot of sense, like embracing this distributed model. But we think it's amazingly important and valuable to have those moments where, where you can get the entire cross section of the community exposed to one another and learning from one another and growing around one another. So we're excited to get back. It's going to be a different physical environment. It's about nurturing our talent, and that's why we've been successful, and that's where we'll continue to invest.
So, I mean, I know that you guys have definitely been succeeding, and I think, obviously the economic news about the first quarter of this year in the U.S. at least was very positive, and I have seen so much activity from marketers as they kind of wake up and choose new partners or expand marketing activities. But I mean, as you look forward for the next, let's say, year to 18 months, how do you see that landscape unfolding?
Yeah. So it's, you listed a whole bunch of the dimensions that are occurring right now. And the other thing that's happening is there's a real comparison shopping type of a behavior that's happening in our industry. And one of those points or those data, those signals, could I be doing this more cost effectively myself? Could I be investing in the type of talent that could drive my business forward? So, we feel like this is not something that I would love to share with every brand that we work with, but I do in part look at our clients as competitors. And I mean that only in that it drives our organization to continue to apply new processes, implement new strategies and technologies in order to service them effectively. If we're not better, if we're not quote unquote better at marketing than they are, then why would they want to partner with us in the first place? So it's a lot of just pushing ourselves to not only manage business on a day-to-day, but also anticipate how their businesses are going to change over time so that we can continue to deliver that value requirement. So huge emphasis on education and training and again, talent. Like the talent pool right now is okay, but it's so competitive. There are so many options for people. As you mentioned, like businesses starting to turn on again, the economy is starting to rebound, competitors all over the place, including our brands, but also these monstrous media and technology companies that benefit from the talent that we groom. Right. So we've got our hands full, but it's about being the best marketing like modern day marketing practitioner that we can be, and then scaling that to service hundreds of brands and campaigns, thousands of campaigns. So it's not a small challenge.
It's not a small challenge, but Donnie, you've done a hell of a job throughout your career doing it. So I know that you've always been a couple steps ahead of everybody. So I'm confident that Horizon's going to continue to lead the way. It's been great to have you on Uncaged today. We've been talking to Donnie Williams. He is the EVP and Chief Digital Officer of Horizon Media. He also is the co-founder of a related agency to Horizon, which is Night Market, and involved in many, many other activities. Donnie, great to hear your perspective on everything. If anybody wants to connect with you, where should they find you?
Yeah. Well, you can always get me all over social media. And if you want to hit me at my work address, it's first initial, last name at Horizon Media. So awesome. D. Williams at Horizon Media.
Well, listen, Donnie, thank you so much for being on Cage, and I'm excited to see how this year progresses. I'll talk soon.
And I appreciate it. Good to connect.